Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abi.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
What are you doing over there in your bathrobe and in your really adorable New York hat?
Yankees hat.
Yeah, your ball cap.
I'm just making mouth noises on the microphone.
You just got done eating some chicken nuggets. Yeah, I remember back when I did the Liberation Project, a lot of times Blair and I would play around.
Mm-hmm.
And people would be like, why are you playing around? Just get to the good information.
They're like, they have some good stuff to say after they talk about random crap for 10 minutes.
That's so real. No, we got that all the time.
Yeah.
Blair and I we really had a good dynamic when it came to us going and playing.
Oh, I thought you were about to try to compare it to us.
No, I'm just saying that we had a fun time. We'd always go out and do really fun things. Sometimes we would drag the podcast equipment out and go dive into like the lake and do something silly and stupid to start it all off. And and then I got you.
Hey, we drug our podcast equipment into a bathtub. You never did that with Blair.
Or did I? The unreleased episodes.
Lordy.
Oh man, that was a fun episode, jumping into a tub together and doing an episode. There are probably people who haven't listened to all the episodes and they're like, what? Yeah. You jumped into a tub together. That was a fun episode. We've done
fun episodes.
Mm-hmm.
We did an episode on fun.
Yeah.
That's literally a fun episode.
Mm-hmm. Were we having fun when we did it, though?
Yes.
Yeah, we were.
I have fun every time we record.
Do you?
Yeah.
Except for when you're triggered?
Yeah, but then normally we have to stop recording and then we have to start over.
Uh-huh.
And then normally that one's fun. Once we're not triggered.
Speaking of fun and playing around, today we want to have a conversation about childlikeness versus childishness.
Oh.
I have found that within...
what have you found?
I have found that within my business, especially meeting one-on-one with clients for years, I heard some of the most difficult experiences inside of the human experience.
Oh, yeah.
And it really could have made me
soul crushing.
It could have made me an embittered man.
It could have.
Very.
I mean, there were times you literally laid on the floor and wept after hearing people's stories because they were so brutal.
Yeah, there was some really brutal stuff. And it can make you get very jaded. Both are your own personal story that you walk through and the stories of other people. Because when you look at the world today and you look at other people's stories and have an intimate conversations with people, there's a lot of messy, destructive things that happen inside of the world. And it's very easy to get lost in hopelessness and despair about everything that's going on.
Yeah.
And the thing that really saved me from going down that road was my relationship with childlikeness.
Oh.
And there's so many different expressions of childlikeness. And we're going to get into what childlikeness looks like. Because I've had people ask me, excuse me, I've had people ask me, well, what's the difference between childlikeness and childishness? Like, what does it mean to even be childlike? Because in their head, childlike...
Maybe they group it all together.
Yeah, like it gets into kids throwing tantrums and all kinds of stuff. But once we can actually delineate between childlikeness and childishness, what we begin to discover, number one, is that most of us are living very childish as it is. And we're offended. A lot of people are offended with the word restoring childlikeness. Like, I'm not a child, I'm a big adult. Yeah, but you act childish. But you've lost your ability to live in childlikeness.
The irony is most adults are living out of their little kid a lot.
Yes. Do you want to talk a little?
Not in the childlike kind of way.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about what it means to live out of the little kid? Because I think that like us setting on like an idea, painting a picture, words.
Painting a picture.
Paint a picture of what it is to live out of your little kid.
So basically, we learn a lot of things when we're young, when we're in developing our brain and our personalities. And there's places that we can get emotionally stunted. Maybe our needs didn't get met, or we never learned how to use our words, or we never worked through a pain or a trauma that happened to us as a kid. And so what happens is our nervous system as an adult can get hijacked by an event happening, because our brain is built to help us survive as humans. It's built to help us protect us. And so it is constantly looking for any threat at any area that could remind us of any threat that we've experienced in the past. And so what happens is maybe I'm going along throughout my day and you say, we're going to be done doing this now. Now we're going to do this. And it feels like I'm powerless and like I don't get a choice to have a voice. Well, my nervous system can take me back to being a kid and where I felt really powerless with my parents.
Yeah.
And so then I can revert to acting out of my child self. And so I might be like, no, I don't want to do that.
So you're no longer acting with logic and reason and checked into the reality of the circumstance.
Or like adult life skills, like good communication, the ability to talk and listen.
Right.
Yeah. You're normally reacting as a little kid. Like, no, I don't want to would be a great idea. Or like,
I hate you. Why are you doing this to me?
Or like, or even if I don't react like that on the outside, that internal like FU wall of like, you can't make me do this.
Yeah. Or that sense of feeling small and powerless.
Or like a lot of times when I was overwhelmed, I'd be like a little girl, like crying, like, it's too big for me. I can't clean the kitchen. I can't do it. And you actually, before we even understood this psychologically, you picked up on this. Do you remember?
Yeah. Well, I remember you were having a meltdown.
Uh-huh.
And if I remember right, it was specifically at your house when we had gone and stayed at your house. This is the memory that I remember. And it could have been the
first time.
Yeah, that I really grabbed hold of it. And you were on the ground laying on your back and you were having a meltdown, like, I gotta do it, I never get it. And I was like, oh my God, this is like dealing with a 5-year-old or something. And internally, I was having a dialogue with God and I was like, I don't know what to do. This is insane to me. And I felt like the internal voice I heard was like, there's a little kid here and you need to speak to a little kid and you need to comfort the little kid. And I was like, that's so weird. But I'll try anything at this point.
Totally.
So I was like, hey, little Abby, I love you. How are you doing? And like that began developing this understanding for me and us of there is a child self that's in some form of trauma point. We didn't have language for like, oh, this is an emotional flashback.
Yeah.
This is trauma happening. We just knew like, oh, if I could get
our nervous system has hijacked us and taken us back to a previous memory. We didn't know that.
Yeah. But I did know that if I could get some sense of comfort and care and love and understanding and gentleness to you in that moment, to that part of yourself, then my wife would come back to me and be like, "Oh, that was weird."
Totally. Yeah. You know, it's really interesting because you started doing that and then you started being like, it feels like this is like a little kid part of you. I think I was pretty offended at first. But then I started to notice that felt true,
right,
and real. And the longer that we've gone on this journey, the more I've realized like, oh, my little kid had a lot of places that I was emotionally stunted.
Yeah, and
so that dysregulation that I had as a little kid would show up as an adult, and me not learning how to get through those moments or get through those skills could hijack me. And now that we've learned it, you can notice a lot of people have little kids selves that they operate out of.
And you use the word hijack, and I just want to come back to the word hijack.
Yeah.
Because that's a great terminology for it. Like it's when suddenly you feel like your capacity to manage yourself well and respond well to situations, and all of a sudden you feel like your brain and your emotions were hijacked. Everything got overtaken. And then all of a sudden, like when everything subsides, you're like, you feel shame. Like, why did I do that? I don't know how I got there, and you're just like, I felt crazy. And that is the hijacking. That is the and so often it can happen in very minute ways. It doesn't have to be explosive meltdown. It can be all of a sudden like, oh, I reacted in an expression of fear and stuff. Like, it wasn't big, but it was enough that, why did I kind of blow up at that person at the grocery store?
Right.
Or all of a sudden become so demanding out of nowhere in that situation. And probably. And because it didn't warrant it, right? Like a lot of times, like when we get to logic, peaceful
like once we
self,
get back to our adult self,
we go
like, why was I so upset about that?
That wasn't very logical for me to do that. That's those hijacking moments where kid self takes over.
I would say when it was happening to me, I would not have said I feel hijacked.
Right.
I would have just said, these are my emotions.
Yeah.
This is how I feel. Don't tell me I'm being hijacked. Because it felt so true to me and it felt so real in the moment. And I want to make sure like we're using like kind of funny, playful examples, but this happens a lot to my friends. Well, they'll go into their little kid about hopelessness or powerlessness. Right. So like I can recognize sometimes, like I was talking to a friend the other day and they were just like, I'm not going to get what I need if I don't get this job. And I was just like, that's not logical. Like there's 5 million jobs you could get.
Totally. To get
and you could get what you need. And so I was trying to have a logical like exchange of like, I think there's probably other jobs. And she was like, no, this is the one. If I don't get this one, then I won't get that feeling of safety that I'm looking for. And then I was like, oh, this is your little kid. And you can't logic with people's little kids. Because they don't need logic. That's not what they need. They need comfort and they need love. And I was actually able to, and most of the time when I would say my mom went into her little girl a lot. Yeah. And that was probably like one of the biggest pain points.
Where she got stuck.
Well, I was going to say for me.
I'm saying, you mean pain points with her?
Yeah.
Yeah, because she gets stuck there a lot. Too.
And little kids are not rational.
No.
And logic doesn't work. And they're emotional and they are dysregulated. So little kids, when you go into your little kid, you're often I need to feel regulated again. I need to feel safe again. I need to feel okay. So my friend who went into her little girl, it was like, when I could hear like, this is the only thing that if I don't get this, I won't feel safe or I won't get my needs met. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a little kid who has like one pathway they know to get to safety. Whereas an adult could be like, actually, there's multiple jobs that could bring you security.
Safe and secure and enjoyment and all kinds of stuff.
But your little kid might have felt like if mom doesn't meet my needs, no one will. And so it can feel like those pathways feel really, really loud. Yes. But so my mom often interacted out of her little kid self. She'd be very like the way my mom did it would be very overwhelmed, very emotional, very fragile, very sensitive. And then also she could throw fits like a little kid, you know? And I think oftentimes anger fits.
I was literally going to say anger outbursts. Is a kid's self all of a sudden showing up to the thing and feeling extremely powerless or in a lot of pain. And it's a child being like, no, I can't stop this.
And so I learned to react a lot to like, so I would dissociate when my mom went into her little girl and I'd go into logic. And so for years when people would be in their little kids, I'd find myself really triggered.
Right.
Because I'd be like, what is wrong with them? And I thought it was just that they had victim mentality, but now I know it was like triggering my mom.
Right. It was like
stuff like this feels out of control. Yeah. And so now I'm much like my friend, I could feel myself getting triggered because what she was presenting it like it was logic, but it wasn't logical.
Right.
And so I said,
I was going to ask you a question. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh,
I'll follow up.
So I just said, I can tell that like I'm having a trigger here. Do you think that now she's very in tune with herself? it feels like possibly you're in your little girl right now. Does that feel like that could be true? It's seeming like that sense of, I'm not going to be okay. I'm never going to be okay. I'm not going to get my needs met. The only path I have to get my needs met is this one. Does that feel like your little girl? And then she was like, yes. And I was like, okay, I have no, like, let's be tender towards your little girl. That makes sense. It's confusing to me to try to talk to an adult when it's not an adult.
Yeah. Would you say that for you, when you want to go and dissociate and you get triggered, that also you're stepping into your kid self?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's taking me back, like I'm going back in time to feeling like my powerless self. It's just that in those moments, I felt like I stepped out of my kid self, like I dissociated into logic. So, but yeah, I'm still reacting out of that little kid part of me. Yeah.
So that, I mean, that's the thing. We all end up going into that stuff. And the faster we can recognize, because I've seen this across the board, if I can get someone to recognize the difference between adult self and kid self, then all of a sudden when something's happening and they're in a trigger and all of this response is happening, they can stop and go, okay, this isn't adult.
Yep.
This is a little kid. What can I do to resolve something with the little kid? To take care of my
little kid. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times that's what is going on for me. Like, so the other day when I was with my friends, she triggered. I was like, okay, heart, I know that mom went into her little kid a lot and that you felt really unsafe.
Yeah.
Because nothing was logical and nothing made sense in this place. And it was highly emotional and it felt really scary to you. I want you to know that you are actually safe now and you're secure. And I see how hard that was for you. And I normally validate and like acknowledge, like, I'm sorry. It would have felt really scary and out of control to feel like somebody was telling you something that felt like logic, but you knew it wasn't.
Yeah.
And of course you felt confused about what reality was. And of course you felt overwhelmed by these emotions. And of course you didn't know what to do with them because you weren't her mom and you couldn't mother her. And that makes a lot of sense that you have a lot of fear around that. And that makes a lot of sense that you're scared. It's just me doing to my little kid what I would have needed someone to do, which is acknowledge my emotions. Sometimes just acknowledging your emotions and naming what happened can be a huge relief.
It's good. Yeah, because a lot of time when the kid self turns up, like really what it needs is the nurture.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, what you're expressing is a sense of nurture. It's stopping, seeing something, becoming aware of what's happening, validating, attuning to it. It's kindness, it's gentleness, it's compassion, understanding, patience, whatever. But so, yeah, ultimately, I found that those moments when I could acknowledge this is probably kid self, that I would find myself like, what kid self? How old was I? Where was I at? I could find myself returning to very specific moments that were being handed to me. It was like my heart was being like, here you go. This is a moment that I want resolve on. I'm trying to get resolve here. I'm trapped. It's almost as if these moments of time where we have an impact, a painful, impactful moment, like, well, let me back up. It doesn't have to be something enormous. It could be something as simple as like our parents walked out of the room this one moment and then all of a sudden we were in pain about something and they didn't come back. And just in kid brain.
It could be something as little as your dad eating your fries.
Right. And then it's something inside of the kid says like, oh, everything will always be taken from me. I will, I'll never get what I want. I can't trust people who are in authority, just wild things, right? And a lot of times people will dismiss, like even if they connect, they're like, oh, I had this weird thought come up about this memory I hadn't thought of in forever. My dad stole a fry off the plate. And it was like, wow, that was stupid. But it's like our soul is starting to have a conversation with us saying, hey, can you come back here and see this moment and be with me in this moment and acknowledge what I'm going through inside of this? And then the resolve begins to happen.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. Point. So our brain is built to prepare us for any kind of threat. So that's why it pulls up our past memories So if I'm around you and you eat a fry off my plate, and my dad used to eat all my fries, my body will tell me I'm right back in that memory from when I was a kid, so that my alarms can go off, so that I can set a boundary. So I can be like, no, you can't have my fries. Like that's, so our brain is wired to protect us that way. But the other cool way that we're made is that when those reactions come up, they open our subconscious up to receive healing.
Yes.
And so when I am like, no, you can't have my fries, I can be like, okay, this is crazy. Why am I having a reaction like this?
About fries, yeah.
And I can be like, okay, I felt really out of control when this is not a true thing for me. I'm just picking one that I've heard before from one of my clients. But so like, oh, my dad always stole my fries and I never had a voice, and he took all my food. And so I would, if that was what was going on, I'd be like, oh, okay, that part of my subconscious is actually activated and asking for acknowledgement and healing.
Yeah.
And that's why triggers are beautiful, because it can bring up to us the exact place that needs love, that needs to have a voice, that needs to be heard and seen and known.
Yeah. And so a lot of things, like, to me, there's a lot of things that show up inside of our child self. Mm-hmm. And this is where it becomes childish. So I think of a list of things that stands out to me. Like, we become demanding mm-hmm. and reactive really mm-hmm. quickly. We're very impatient. Mm-hmm. We want to hide, like mm-hmm. hiddenness kind of kicks in and we want to go hide.
Like the kids who sneak into the corner to poop in their diapers.
Well, yeah, that, or you make a mistake and all of a sudden you want to hide, like a kid who's like, oh, I ate the cookie and I shouldn't have eaten the cookie. So now I'm going to go act like nothing happened and try and but I have chocolate all over my face.
Totally.
We're very inconsiderate.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we're in kid self, we're not thinking about the other people and how we affect them. We're just freaking out inside mm-hmm. of our situation. We can be really unkind.
Mm-hmm.
We also have this sense of like black and white thinking.
Oh yeah.
Where it's just
this like
this or that. There's no secret options, because oftentimes kids can't see bigger pictures.
Well, their brain isn't fully formed.
Exactly. So they can't think outside of the box.
If I don't have this chocolate milk, I'll never drink again. If I don't have this hamburger, I'll starve to death. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very like black and white thinking.
Mm-hmm. I think that also there's an aspect of aggression. Mm-hmm. Like when this childishness comes out in a very aggressive manner, because like we're feeling very unprotected. We feel like we have to fight for something all of a sudden.
Very powerless. Most of the time mm-hmm. when we have a reaction that is aggressive, it's because our little kid felt bullied or pushed around or powerless. And so we are trying to find that power for that little kid.
Yeah.
And there's healthy ways to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that this sense of lacking nuance is a really big thing. Mm. So there's just like, again, that goes back to in connection with black and white thinking as well. But children look at stuff and they can't see past the story that's right in front of them.
Yeah.
They can't create nuance of like, oh, there's probably a lot of other pieces.
They're never thinking, puzzle. Oh, mom's probably tired. That's why she's yelling at me. They're like, mom hates me. Totally. Mom's a bitch.
Totally.
They're like going through all their stuff. Whereas like an adult can look at that and be like, oh, mom is really tired. Mm-hmm. Mom just got bad news from her sister. Mm-hmm. She's processing a lot. And these kids are going crazy. Mm-hmm. And so her reaction makes a lot of sense, because as adults, we can see that there's lots of different pieces to any story. But as kids, we're like, they're bad.
Exactly.
Or I'm bad. I must have done everything wrong. That's why mom's upset.
Yeah.
That's a really big child. Like, you're in your child self if you believe that it's all your fault.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or it's all their fault.
Yes.
Both of those are child versions.
The victim vilification thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those are very childish things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not even a bad statement. It's like, oh, it is childish. This is like not adult self. This is childishness.
Yeah.
And I think that probably people would even be triggered hearing me say this because they've probably been heard like, quit acting so childish, like aggression with it. But that probably your kid's self is coming up inside of that if you're like getting angry and offended at it.
Touche.
Because the adult self can go, yeah, that is actually childish. It's like, that's not in an adult brain that has reasoning and is well equipped to tackle the ups and downs of life. I think childishness also is impulsivity. Like that's a very we're not considering. I
want it now.
And we're not considering the far-reaching effects of our behavior.
Yeah, we have no idea that if I eat this candy bar now, I will have a stomachache later.
Correct.
We have no idea that if I steal this toy from my friend, that my friend will be sad. Like there's no thoughts about how this thing will affect other things.
And we had this guy that worked for my dad, and he was deeply trapped in his child self 24/7. And so impulsivity and stuff like that. So he'd be the one to be like, no big deal. I'm just going to steal this thing or take this other thing over here. And he's not thinking about, he got busted for a meth lab. But he was like, but I needed to make meth because it was cheaper because my medication for my ADD, I can just make meth and it'll do the same thing. And then I guess I'll sell it because there was no
thoughts of repercussions.
There's no ability to think of repercussions that happens. And that's what impulsivity does. It turns you into making meth. Also along the lines of...
That'd be a funny meme. It's like the only soundbite that people get from us. Impulsivity turns you into making meth.
Which on the note of impulsivity is this idea of vengefulness. And I say it like that because to me, vengefulness doesn't think about the ramifications of our behavior as well. And we just want to get back at somebody because we don't know how to process emotions. We don't know how to process grief. We want to inflict pain on someone else. And now you know how I feel. And that's what a little kid who's powerless does, is he wants to go grab a Lincoln log or a Lego and stab it into another kid's eye and be like, hurts, doesn't it?
True.
I've got my vengeance. Anyways, I think that, again, all along those lines, kind of similar language, is short-sightedness. That impulsivity goes back to a short-sightedness. We're not actually looking at the long term. A couple other I thought of, I think is we believe that we're very incapable.
Yeah. Overwhelmed, fragile, little. I'll never be able to make my dreams come true. I'll never be able to face my finances. That's a big one. I was just talking to one of my friends the other day, and we were talking about how much avoidance there can be looking at your bank account.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh my gosh, I think I have such huge triggers because I avoided looking at my bank account for years. I would just eventually look and find out that I was really overdrawn and had to pay all these fees. And so that feeling that he would go into when he felt the want to resist it was like his little kid. I can't do this. This is too much for me. I can't handle this.
When I felt...
Avoidance is a really big childish quality. Yeah. Which is, I can't handle this. This is too big for me. And I remember when we got married, I felt that way about everything. Almost every single thing in life. Yeah. This is too big for me. I can't clean this bathroom. I'll never be able to do it. I can't pack this suitcase. I'll never be able to do it. Yeah. And you'd be like, no, you're powerful. You can handle this.
Yeah. I was very confused. Very confused. And then I was like, no.
Don't you wish you would have known about trauma?
If I knew this
PTSD,
stuff back then,
and knowing my little kid was there.
So easy. Man, we would be so much further along.
Also, you would have been so much nicer to me.
I would have been. Way less anger at how powerless
way less judgy.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, my kid self was like, I'm not safe.
You're bad because I'm not safe. Yeah.
Yeah, which even on that note, I think that's one of the other ones is judgmentalism. In that,
being judgmental.
Yeah, I've struggled with tons of that, and I go into the child stuff because, kids, they don't. We used words like nuance. They also don't have the capacity to see someone's humanity. We go into judging, and also it feels safe. That's a protector. That's a sense of protection. If I can judge you and judge your intentions and your behavior, then I can set up some form of a system to save myself. which is a really big part of it.
Yeah.
But I think the point of even talking that out is like what we can universally see, all of us adults, when we hear a list like that,
is that we all do it. All of us find ourselves in that spot somewhere or another.
You can be the most prim and proper human being and an executive of a company.
Oh, yeah.
And you are exhibiting childish behavior.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know any of my clients who didn't go into their kids' selves.
Absolutely.
Regularly. Yeah. I go into my kids' self still a good amount.
Yeah, I do too.
And we are working on that.
Yeah. I mean, when I
might be a grown up by the time I'm like 50.
If we're lucky.
But you know what? I was thinking about this. So this woman that I'm close to, her dad was like in the Holocaust and had to grow up really fast and had to take care of a bunch of people. And when he got older, he got sick. And so his wife had to take care of him. His wife and son took care of him all the time. And she said he's the happiest he's ever been. Like he looked so happy, even though he was like slowly dying. And she was like, it literally felt like his little kid self was finally getting the attention he'd wanted his whole life.
Wow.
Was fine. Like he finally allowed himself to let his needs get met. He finally allowed himself to like get the nurture and the comfort and to be taken care of. And so she was actually bringing it up because she's like, I want to learn how to take care of my little kid self so I don't need to get sick in order to get that nurture and care need met.
Isn't it interesting how aging, like there's kind of like, there's a very specific purpose for being on Earth, I think. And like you can't really escape like a million invitations along the way, but especially aging's like, hey kid, you're at death's door. Are you going to let yourself be loved and taken care of finally and restored back to what you were designed for? And like, fine, clean my diaper. I can't do nothing about it now. But it's like death itself, for the most part, short of the random quick tragedies where you get hit by a bus or a car wreck, what things like that, is even death itself is like trying to invite us into this experience of nurture. And so instead of just waiting for death to do the job for me, why not be like, I'm going to start now. Why don't I just kind of surrender to nurture and let people meet my needs and take care of this part of myself? So the parts of me that are functional can actually enjoy this experience.
Yes.
Which, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking like, this has also helped me have compassion for people.
Yeah.
Where I used to be judgmental because I used to be like, what the F are they doing? Like most of it would be like, that makes no sense to me. Why would they do that? Why are they doing that? And then all of a sudden, now I have compassion because I'll be like, oh, that is like a little kid. Like you can start to see it. You can start to see people's little kid selves. You can start to hear. Sometimes people even change their voice when they go into their little kid
Absolutely.
self. I do that sometimes where I'll get like, oh, just a little baby and I don't know what to do. I just feel so overwhelmed. But now you can start to see it. And so instead of being annoyed or angry, or confused, you can now like have compassion. Like, oh, they must be feeling scared or threatened
Yeah, because it's very easy. I mean, there's a lot of cultures where people grow up where they hear like, grow the F up. What is wrong with you? And if you see that moment, instead of being irritated at someone, because even your irritation of judgment, again, is this childishness that's going on inside of us where we're like, I want to judge the fact that that's happening. And I'm like, oh, that's probably your little kid internally feeling like someone's not acting capable and productive, and you're feeling abandoned and alone. And and you're the same. You're just expressing it in aggression versus incapability instead of fragile. So fragility in one person manifests, and then aggression manifests in the other one. It's both childishness out of both of them.
Well, that's like our entire marriage. I showed up very, very fragile and you got really judgy about it.
Totally.
Yep.
It's real. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Now apologize to me.
I'm sorry. I know. I do feel sorry. It would feel really overwhelming. Like I look at my history, I think both of us not knowing we had PTSD.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
it was messy.
Yeah. But the cool thing is it's created that smashing into each other has actually created a lot of understanding through the process of getting healing and help. And anyways, who cares about that? I do want to talk about the other side of that coin because we don't have a ton of time, but I want to talk about that childlikeness.
Yeah.
Because
a lot of people try to avoid childlikeness to avoid childishness.
Yeah.
Look at you. You came up with this.
Oh, I did.
And that was good articulation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just going to start with playfulness, you know, and
well, wait, what's the goal of being childlike? Why?
To have an abundant life. Like that's where goodness happens inside of life. That's where happiness starts happening inside of it. Because here's what happens. So adults are just embittered little children who are just trapped away from the things that they need. That's what an adult really is. And so this heaviness, like people wear this constant heaviness of life. And that's because they've basically assassinated their childlikeness.
They still have their childishness.
Yes.
But they have killed their childlikeness, which is the counterbalance that really helps buoy the human soul.
Yeah. And childlikeness is the beautiful expressions of innocence.
And love and vulnerability.
Yeah.
Like children are just wide open to receiving love.
Yeah.
They're wide open to giving love. They're wide open to hoping and dreaming.
Like when you think of a child before it's had like...
It's soul crushed.
Yeah. Soul crushed and painful experiences. It's really very light. For the most part. I mean, like the initial baby cries because it just needs to communicate that.
Yeah.
But like there's so much about children where they're just like going on about life. No big deal.
I would say often neurotypical children.
Sure.
Yeah.
So often the kids will be able to just be like, oh, I'm just enjoying life until some harsh shaming moment hits, until some sort of rod of correction or some sort of interpretation that goes to their own head about an experience happens and starts like jarring the way that they're experiencing life. That sense of shame, that sense of self-judgment hits. But before that, when they're just like, I don't know, I'm having fun, we're all good, right? And if love exists, then it continues on. Anyways, going back to childlikeness, to me, playfulness, it has been such an enormous one because that kept my soul from actually being completely damaged by working with some of the darkest parts of humanity. I mean, it's like we've talked so many times before about my nerd cave. I brought someone into my man cave the other day. I was like, you want to see my man cave? And they're like, sure. And then I bring them in. They're like, huh.
This is not a man cave. This is a little kid cave. This is a nerd cave.
It's like I didn't take man cave out of a whole room full of action figure collectibles.
That's very true.
But you know, it was me tying myself to play and creativity and that part of myself again that kept me from breaking down. And it inside of that is a connection to joy. And which is another word that comes up as wonder.
Yeah. I mean, kids have childlike wonder. Like, I think that's the beauty of having kids and then grandkids around is you start to remember how amazing. We were at a birthday party. I was the other day, and there was this little 2-year-old girl, and the moon came out, and she was like, "Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!" She was so excited about it. And then she was like, she made everybody look, and she was like freaking out at it. And we all like just giggled with delight at like, when was the last time that the moon came out? And we freaked out because when we actually describe it, we're like, there's another planet that we can see that just moved into view. Like that's actually really, really worthy of us freaking out about.
Yeah, total
but it's
excitement.
so normalized to us.
Yeah.
And she was like jumping up and down and just like in awe of
it
it.
is. There's a childlike word.
Yes.
Awe and wonder right there.
Boosh. They're not used to things. So they're still experiencing things like they're magical and like there's something amazing about life. And
they're not oppressed and they're not just like a stupid moon. Who cares? Give me another beer.
And it is like, I think that adults learn to not be vulnerable. I think they learn to not celebrate,
not enjoy things,
and not enjoy things.
And we temper all of those good emotions because it's so scary that we might be told, why do you think this is so funny? What do you think so great about that? You know, like even reactions from people that say, oh, this wasn't okay to have. I better temper it.
Yeah. But awe and wonder, like, one, it fills my soul. Like when I'm outside and I'm like, I'll like stop everybody. I'll be like, just smell the air right now. You can smell the flowers in the air. How amazing is that? And my friends love how much wonder I have about things because it helps them engage it.
Oh, totally.
Like
Marcus is a lot like that. We were walking at the men's thing that we just spoke at, and in the Grand Tetons. And he stops because the sun was shining on us, and you could see these massive mountains and the birds. I can still hear it. He stopped to just take it in. He has this big smile painted across his face as his eyes are closed, and he's just listening and feeling. And I just stop with him and totally engage the awe and the wonder of the moment and fully, let ourselves be in it.
Yeah, like my friend Lauren, she's been on this podcast before, but she will pull her car over to look at a sunset. Like that is a childlike thing to do. Like, and adults are like, no, I'm busy. Like I'll just enjoy it while I'm driving and I got things to do. But the childlike part of her that is so beautiful, it would be like, I'm going to pull over. I'm going to stop and really enjoy this. And actually I've been reading, we call it resource so far on our podcast. I might start changing it because scientifically they're calling them glimmers.
I hate that name.
I love it.
I'm disgusted by it.
They say glimmers are the opposite of triggers. Glimmers are those moments where you feel that awe or that wonder or that goodness of life or that feeling of like you feel like a glimmer of hope, a glimmer of goodness, a glimmer. And so you can actually retrain your nervous system to learn to notice the glimmers and experience them. And that's what Marcus has done.
Yeah. I just loved it. I think a couple other things that stand out to me is like curiosity. Kids are going to like flip over a rock and be like, what's under the rock? Yeah.
They'll be like, but why do we do this? And why is that color named that color? And why do you, it's constant curiosity.
Yeah. And I understand how the why gets stomped out of kids. I mean, like if we had kids and my kid's like, why, what is this? Like, I'd be like, I don't have enough capacity to explain the world.
100%.
Here's my phone. Google it.
Yeah.
But there's curiosity. There's humility inside of that, right? Like I don't have to know everything. Like I'm trying to discover the things around me, and such joy again that brings when we're in curiosity mode. We're in discovery mode. We want to like come alive to the life right in front of us, and it feels special to us. We've lost our connection to the specialness of the world around us.
Yeah.
I think another one is trust. Trust is a radical childlike thing, and most of us have just stomped trust into the ground and just spat on it. I refuse to ever trust ever again.
It's hard.
My trust was broken. I won't trust people. I won't trust God. I won't trust circumstances. I can't even trust myself.
Totally.
But kids are like, I don't know. It's like
they
trust.
still believe in the goodness of humanity.
Right. Well, it's innate inside of them.
Yeah.
Until like they've been pummeled by a situation and they're like, okay, forget this trust thing.
Yeah.
But really they're just like, okay, I think everyone's good. And the benefit of the doubt is existing inside of them. And yeah. So, another one that I think of is connectiveness or connected. Like kids automatically want to connect.
Yeah.
For the most part, they're jumping in people's arms. Again, if there's not any big sense of danger and unsafe stuff, a lot of times kids are like, hey.
Yeah.
I was walking in the grocery store the other night in Rayleigh's, and I walk past this cart with this little girl who's probably 2.5 years old. And she just looks me straight in the eyes and she gets the biggest smile. And then she just starts waving at me. And I just was like, I was lit up with joy as I waved back at her.
Yeah, like what if we did that as an adult?
Yeah, what if we looked people in the eye as an adult
and got joy
and just
about them,
smiled and then waved at them?
Yes.
Random strangers.
Yes. There's a little bit more fearlessness.
Yes.
There's a little bit less self-consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even though kids can get really self-conscious, like if you're laughing because you think they're cute, they might think you're laughing at them.
Totally.
So there's that side, but there's that side of them that loves to show that they're affected by things and loves to celebrate and loves to engage.
Yeah. And on that note,
obviously we're talking broad generalizations. I was very shy as a kid, so it doesn't mean every kid is like this.
But generally speaking, there's like this aspect to this childlikeness before things get really interrupted.
Yeah.
Authenticity. Like a kid is going to give you exactly what they think and they feel. Like how many times have you been in a situation where you're talking to a kid and a kid's like says something horrific, socially horrific, socially unacceptable, but it's exactly the true feeling that probably everyone in the room might be feeling or thinking.
Yeah.
And a kid points it out and they're like, oh my God, stop saying that. But there's a sense of authenticity.
Right. Why does that person have a cane? Why does that person have an eye patch?
His breath smells bad, doesn't it?
Totally.
You're like, no, but they don't like obviously there's something healthy about like
learning how to
communicate our authenticity. But if you're going to get what you're going to get out of a kid until they start learning that this isn't acceptable and I need to go back into hiding, right? Kids are very accepting.
Yeah.
So often they're like that before we have those moments in life that tell us like we should try to not accept people and accept situations. They're just kind of like receptive and accepting.
They'll go hug. They'll go hug a stranger. The person that we might judge, they might not judge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's like, I want to give a hug to you. I like you. And that even plays into the thing of it. Relational, I think, is another word. They're so highly relational for the most part.
Yeah.
And then you become an introvert like me where you're like, I had enough bad things happen that I'm not going to be relational right now.
It's fair. It's true.
Which I've come out of that. Like so much of my relational component got rewired as I got reconnected to love. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, and my kid self gets healed. And then my kid self is like, no, but the world's really good. And I can be relational with people. And I love letting people in because it really like is good for me. Mm-hmm. And I think that the last one, because we're talking about love, that comes to my mind is this idea of being receptive to love.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how many kids were like, you're so cute, I love you. And they're like, Totally. And they're like just taking it in.
Yeah.
And to me, that childlikeness, like right there in the receptivity.
God, if we could all just do that as adults.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel that way about like, even like God, if I could just receive love from God. Just receive it, like that pure delight, that pure joy.
Yeah. And so to me, when we can engage with this childlikeness, it heals the childishness, right? We start like navigating and looking at like even the idea of being receptive to love starts like working things out in the childishness that even restores the childlikeness. The more we're receptive to love, it starts working itself through all the areas. And all of a sudden, we're postured with this sense of trust and awe and wonder and gratitude. And I don't know, but that to me is where all of a sudden the sparkle or the glimmer returns back to our eyes.
Yeah.
And you have that sparkle and you're just like, yeah. And people, that draws people. Childlikeness is this magnet for humans. It
really is.
Because everyone's trying to get back unconsciously inside of them. They want to be restored to that childlikeness.
That wonder,
that innocence that was lost so long ago. They know that within that is their authentic self.
Yeah.
But life has buried them, and all that's left is this childishness.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a journey. I think probably like one of the things we're pointing out here in this podcast is to not judge your childishness.
Right, yeah.
To have compassion for it so that you can actually start to meet its needs so you can come out of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then to actually aim at childlikeness. Like, what would it be like if I encouraged people like little kids do? What would it be like if I had gratitude the way the little kids do? What would it be like if I trusted that things were going to be okay like little kids do, you know?
Yeah.
And some of us, like, for me, I have to go to my little kid, because I remember being a young kid and being like, I got to figure this shit out. You know, but there was an age, and there's different levels of childlikeness that we had in every age, I think.
Yeah.
And so this is just an invitation to be more aware of being childlike, of being happy, of letting your joy, showing somebody your delight for them.
Yeah.
Like, I'll run up and kiss Justin all over his face.
Yes. And initially when you did that, I was like, get off of me.
It's very true.
I'm
you
overwhelmed.
hated it. It was overwhelming.
But it has been such a joy to have that, because that healed some of my childlikeness inside of me. And so I'm like, she's loving me and delighting in me. It feels so good.
Yeah. And now you can do it back to me.
And I do it.
Yeah. And just being the gratitude of being childlike, trusting. And what I always say is, like, trusting, getting back to a posture of trust doesn't mean that you get rid of all the discernment you've learned as an adult.
No. No, I don't. No.
Like, getting back to
wisdom and discernment are my best friends as an adult. And in my wisdom and discernment, those are the new things that actually protect me and take care of me.
So that you can be childlike.
So that I can be childlike. I use that wisdom and discernment to perpetuate peace. And I don't have to go to judgment and harshness and aggression and all these things that are childishness. Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's a good conversation. Hey, really, by the way, before I wrap this up, I just want to say we're in the process of diving deep with planning out our next year of life consulting master class. Yeah. And if you're wanting to be in the loop for when we actually open up the application process, that begins, you can send us an email at support@Stumvoll Consulting, STUMVOLL consulting.com.
Yeah, it's cool because we really actually would teach you in that school what to do for your little kid and how to help others little kids.
That's
and how to recognize little kids.
Big things people are walking through in the process.
Yeah, we really help people get compassion for why they do what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. So if
you're to understand other people.
And if you're looking to actually, you'd like to become a life consultant, this is an amazing route to begin to impart the things that we've created and done. Or if you just want to
transform your life, it's like a year intensive.
Yeah. And we're having incredible things happen and students going through it. So that's something that you can email us about. But regardless, I just want to say, like, if this feels like
it's like a part-time school. It's hardcore.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll transform your life.
Yeah. And if you've been impacted by this, like, please, like we always say, rate, review, subscribe, and share it to as many people as possible, because ultimately we don't do a bunch of marketing. We just it's word of mouth. It's like, if you feel impacted, share it with other people and let them experience the change in the connected life that they can experience.
We also have the Compassion Project, which I think is so good on the subject of childlikeness, because we really talk about what you need as a little kid and how to onboard, how to see your little kid needs and give compassion, and what it looks like to reparent yourself, and what it looks like to learn to agree with love over yourself. Like, compassion will change your whole life. Yeah. Compassion towards yourself, compassion towards others, and experiencing the compassion of God. All of those things will transform your life. So you can go to justinandabi.com.
That's justinandabi.com. With all that said, I need some food in my belly.
Oh,
I'm hungry.
You know what I'm going to do?
Some hunger. We're going to go watch another episode of Ted Lasso.
Oh.
Yeah, we is. With our friends.
You know what I'm going to do before that?
Eat food.
I'm going to take a nap.
You get your nap on, okay?
Okay.
Go away.
I like all of you guys.
Like you all. Bye now.